I'd like to welcome all of you to our class today, our presentation. My name is Richard Weir, and I am the current chair of the Grow Your Own series. And I want to welcome all of you to the fifth of our seven-class program on creating a productive, edible garden in the home landscape. This program is a part of the Texas Master Gardener program in Fort Bend County. We work in close partnership with Texas A&M's AgriLife Extension Agency. For those of you who are new to us, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension provides research-based educational programs and outreach services to Texas communities throughout the county offices, or through their county offices, excuse me. We're fortunate to be guided in our work by Jody Taylor, who is our Fort Bend Extension agent for horticulture, and he's over there in the appropriate Texas A&M shirt. And Brandy Rader, our program coordinator, who we could not live without. I would like to also thank the Master Gardeners who are here today, without whom we and I couldn't pull this all off. And especially my boss, Nancy Utek, who is, she's manning the lights. And she leads the programs, all of the programs that are available through the Fort Bend Master Gardener program. She also makes my job a heck of a lot easier, or I would not be up here. Couple of housekeeping items. The bathrooms are out those doors in the back and to the right. We ask that you silence your phones and keep side conversations to a minimum. We will be recording. A link to this presentation will be sent out to you within a week, so you don't have to keep trying to pull up your phone, focus it, get it situated so you can take a picture of what's on the screen. There will be a QR code at the end so that we can get your thoughts about the presentation or any other things that you think might be helpful for you, our members of our community, that you'd like to learn about. After the class, for those of you who would like, you'll have the opportunity to tour our gardens, which are located out that door and straight ahead and then to the left. There will be people there helping to talk about those different areas, from the fruit garden, herb garden, on out to the flowers and so on. We ask that you take your stuff with you because those doors will be locked and you'll need to come around. Our next class will be on June 13th, and the topic will be fall garden preparation and composting. Today's, of course, hopefully you're here for the pollinators and companion plants. If you're here for something else, well, stick around because it'll be a doozy of a presentation. Our presenters today are Mary Parkhouse and Nancy Schaefer. They're two of our most experienced and knowledgeable master gardeners. New piece of paper. Mary has been a master gardener since 2007. She's been a past president, is the current co-chair for our fruit garden, and an active master gardener who has worked in a variety of gardens and most of the fruit tree and vegetable plant sales since 2007. Mary received her entomology, or bug, advanced trained certification in August of 2017, and she joined the Texas Master Naturalist Coastal Prairie Chapter in 2021. Mary has been married to Don since 1982. I didn't notice that the first time I read it. She has one son, Kinch, who is married with two sons. Mary loves gardening, traveling, and birding. Prior to 2011, she was Director of Information Technology for Houston Apartment Association and worked in the computer technology area for all of her career. Our second speaker is Nancy Schaefer. She is a retired teacher who taught high school and middle school science in Waco, Texas, Midland, Texas, Fort Benning, Georgia, and Sugar Land, Texas. and God bless you for doing that. 1966 graduate of Hardin-Simmons University with a BS degree in biology. She grew up on a small farm near Abilene in Taylor County, Texas. It was there that she gained a lifelong appreciation for the outdoors and the wonders of nature, particularly plants, birds, and insects. A Fort Bend County resident since 1975, she was convinced by a dear friend to join the county's Master Gardener program in 2004 and later became a member of the entomology group. A self-professed expert weed puller, she is available for hire. She enjoys working with her fellow Master Gardeners and teaching others, especially children, about the wonders of plants and insects. Nancy and her husband, Leroy Schaefer, who serves as her plant, insect, and bird photography assistant, have been married for 58 years. And before we present our presenters, our esteemed AgriLife Extension agent would like to speak about an upcoming event.
Thank you, Richard. I don't need a microphone. Yes, you do. Steve says, as much money as I spend on these microphones, you're going to use it. Good morning. Thank you all for coming to our Grow Your Own series. I just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements, and then I'll get out of these ladies' way so they can give you the real information you came here for. First of all, you're in for a treat because these classes are put on by our Master Gardeners that have a whole lot more knowledge and experience than I do. They're highly trained, many, many years of gardening experience. So I hope you learned a lot today. One thing that Richard talked about in addition to the Grow Your Own series, these postcards, if you flip it over, we have a Landscape Success series. And the next class is Thursday. This one is virtual on Zoom. Next class is Thursday, May 22nd, and it's on container gardening. So if you're interested in that, and at least register. If you're not available Thursday from 1 to 2:30, at least register, and then you'll get a copy of the recording and go back and watch it later. And the other thing I wanted to announce is, in addition to Master Gardeners doing training for AgriLife Extension, we also rely on specialists from College Station. So I have a specialist coming down Saturday, May 30th, to help me do a pecan and fruit tree grafting clinic. So this is going to be in Katy at the HCC Katy campus, and it's from 9 to 1:30. We're going to graft. We're going to do educational presentation and then actually do a grafting demonstration. We're going to graft 7 trees, 3 pecans, 2 citrus, and 2 pear trees, and then we're going to give those away as door prizes. There's a flyer on your table, so if you're interested, scan the QR code and register, and hope to see you there. Thank you.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? In the back corner back there? Okay. First of all, I'm going to start with a disclaimer. Nancy and I are not vegetable growers. If you have specific questions about a particular vegetable growing problem you're having, we have a help desk, which the information for how to get a hold of them will be at the end of my presentation. So that's, but I know a fair amount about pollinators, and Nancy knows a bunch about insects, and we know a bunch about companion plants. And we've done a lot of research on what happens between companion plants and vegetables. So that's what we're going to talk about. And thank you all very much for coming. I'm going to talk about pollination, pollinators, and what are companion plants, what is companion planting. And Nancy's going to talk about the why, what works with what and why. Pollination, you probably already know this, but pollination occurs when little pollen granules from the male part of the flower are transferred to the female part of the flower, and successful pollination results in your seed or your fruit. We show the bee here because a lot of our plants that we get fruit from, are beans, and not beans, but fruit from, need insect pollination. The insect goes from one flower in the same family. A zinnia cannot pollinate a cosmos. So you need to know that it's pollination that results between plants of the same species. So this little bee visits flower number 1, and he's getting nectar but he's also getting pollen because he eats pollen and he brings pollen for his young. He goes to the next flower and he gets more nectar and he picks up a little more pollen. And then he goes to the next flower and he happens to go right across that stigma and he leaves the pollen there, which results in a seed. There's two basic kinds of pollination. This is what's called a perfect flower. It has both the male and female parts in the flower. A lot of plants have imperfect flowers where they have a male flower, female flower. That's called cross-pollination, and a lot of cross-pollination requiring plants have to have insect fertilization. Pollinators. You're probably going to wonder why I have a person and a dog in there. Well, we are pollinators. You walk through a field and you brush up against the flower, and you walk a little further and you brush up against the flower of that same type, and you leave the pollen that you picked up. But we're incidental pollinators. We're not very important as nature goes. However, bats, in the desert, there are certain plants that are only pollinated by bats. Water, there are certain plants that grow in the water, and their pollen falls into the water, drifts down, and pollinates the next plant. Wind. Wind is very important. Our corn and all of our grain, all the grass-type plants are pollinated by wind. But the ones we're going to talk about are the insects. Insects are the most important pollinators for the plants that we grow and we eat the fruit from. It turns out that 75% of flowering plants are pollinated by insects. The the Fish and Wildlife Department did a study. $34 billion of income resulted from insect pollination of plants. So they're pretty important. Now, in the last couple of decades, we have lost 40% of our insects by volume. That's a lot of insects. And we've lost them for a variety of reasons. The biggest one being habitat loss. We need homes, we need highways, we need buildings. Well, those all go places where insects used to live. So we can help put back some of that by putting diverse flowering plants in our yards. And we're going to talk about that as we go along. The most important pollinator is the bee. Bees bring about 15 to $20 billion worth of benefit to our economy every year. As we talked about insects being under a lot of pressure, bees are under a lot of pressure. Bees are all insects are highly susceptible to insecticides. Please do not use insecticides in your gardens unless you absolutely have to. And we're going to talk about some reasons why, if you use companion planting, you won't really need insecticides. A bee is the best pollinator for another reason. Bees do something we call flower constancy. When a bee goes out on a foraging expedition, he only goes, or she, only goes to one variety of flower. So he'll go from a cosmos to a cosmos to a cosmos. That pollinates as he goes along. Now, the next foraging trip, he may go to zinnias. He may just go from one zinnia to the next zinnia. We don't know why they do this, but we know that that's what they do. So that's why they are such an important pollinator. The honeybee. We all know about the honeybee. The honeybee is not a native bee. The honeybee, as you've probably read, has been having a lot of problems lately. Anytime you raise animals, an insect's an animal, in close confines, you have problems. And they've had a lot of disease problems and stress problems. And they're, of course, working on that because this bee is really important commercially. These are some of our native bees. First of all, let me address the sizes on this screen. Your carpenter bee and your bumblebee are big bees. They can be up to about an inch. This poor little sweat bee, he's maybe a ½ inch. He's tiny. And by the way, if you're sweating away out in the garden and this little bee comes and lands on you, he's not landing on you to sting you. he's landing on you to get just a little bit of your sweat. And you know what? He's going to go tell his buddies that you're out there. And you may have a bunch of little sweat bees. Just take that opportunity to look at and understand a little bit more about sweat bees. They're not all bright metallic. They may be black or brown, but they won't sting you. By the way, while we're talking about bees and stings, a bee foraging will not sting you unless you scrunch them or you bump up against them. Their main object at that point in time is to gather pollen and nectar. They're not worried about you, and you shouldn't be worried about them. However, if you are allergic, or if you think you might be, you need to go get tested. You do need to be careful, because people who are allergic to bee stings, it's really bad. The leafcutter bee, you've all seen the results of the leafcutter bee. You know those little circles in your rose leaves or your waxy top leaves? They use those cutouts to line their nests, and they are a ground nesting bee. We'll talk about that in a minute. But he's kind of in between the size of your sweat bees and your bumblebees and your carpenter bees. Our native bees, 90% of them are what we call solitary bees. The only group that's not, the bumblebee, is social. He doesn't make honey like the honeybee, but he has a hive and worker bees and that sort of thing. He has a hive, but it's under the ground. These other bees are what we call solitary. A single female makes her nest, provisions her nest, lays her eggs, and goes on. And after she does it, she dies, but that's her job. Of the 90% that are solitary bees, 70% live in the ground. What this means is you need a space in your garden that's bare ground, not mulch, not plants, bare ground. So if you have a corner or the back of a bed or someplace that you can leave, you'll know they're there because you'll see this hole and it's like fine little grains of sand all around it. I thought at first that was ants. It's not an ant, it's a bee nest. Just leave it alone. They'll be fine. That's where she puts her eggs. Let's see if there was anything else. If there is, maybe I'll remember it later. We're going to talk about how different kinds of vegetables are pollinated. Why is this important? Well, if your plant needs bees or insects to be pollinated, and you're out there and you're not seeing any bees, then you may need to plant some companion plants that'll bring bees in. It just helps you to know which ones of your plants need cross-pollination and which don't. The first type, you need bees in your garden, okay? If you're raising strawberries or sunflowers or apples or plums or peaches or pears, they require cross-pollination from insects. So you need insects in your garden to be able to raise these. I don't know, how many of you know about buzz pollination? It's a very interesting phenomenon. It turns out that tomatoes and eggplants don't have any nectar at all. And although peppers have nectar, the bees can't get to it. Their flowers are very, very closed. The bumblebee discovered long ago that if he goes in front of that flower and he just flaps his wings, turns out he beats his wings 132 beats a second. That the frequency that his wings beat causes the little anthers on these tomato plants, which happen to be, they're empty or they're hollow, and they're filled with pollen, and they have little pores at the top. So they're like a little bitty salt shaker. Well, when this bee is flapping his wings away, it vibrates it at just the right frequency that tons of pollen come out. So the bee gets lots of pollen, and the flower gets pollinated. So if you have tomato plants and you want a good production, you need bumblebees in your garden. They did a study in a greenhouse where they brought bumblebees in. 45% more production, 50% bigger tomatoes. That's pretty astounding. So you need to encourage bumblebees in your garden if you grow tomatoes or eggplants or peppers. Yes?
50% more
production means more tomatoes. Now, these guys do not need pollinators to produce what we eat from them, okay? But if you're one of those people who like to let it bolt and go to flower so that you can collect the seeds so you don't have to buy seeds for next year, then you do need insect pollination. Now, it turns out, and I don't know which ones, sorry, I didn't research this. Some of these are what are called biannual, which means they don't produce flowers every year. Well, guess what? In our climate, the way we're having these cold spells, that plant's not going to live to the second year unless you dig it up and take it in the house. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather buy seeds, but just a word to the wise. So if you're going to let these guys seed out, you need bees to get your seeds. These guys don't need any insects at all. Now, it turns out that your sweet corn and your wheat, barley, and oats, they're all wind pollinated. You will see bees go to them. The bees love the pollen that's on them, but they're not fertilizing them. They're just taking advantage of the pollen. These other guys, their flowers are such that they self-pollinate themselves. And it turns out that green beans, they're often pollinated before that flower even opens. Who knew? I learned so much when I get ready for one of these classes. It's kind of fascinating. What attracts pollinators to plants? It turns out that insects see very differently than we do. Their eye, their big bulging eye, is made up of lots of thousands of little facets, and each one is like taking a picture. So they kind of see in a mosaic. So they don't see, and they don't see motion real well, but they do see colors and patches. So it's very important that it's very good to plant things in a little bit of groups or clumps, or a big flower, so that they can see the color. They have exceptional scent. Their scent organs are like 200 times better than ours. So although we can smell some of the flowers, there are flowers that all the flowers put off a scent. We just don't smell them. And then when they see also ultraviolet. So a lot of flowers have ultraviolet patterns. We don't see them, but they guide them to the nectar and the pollen that's in them. So the more variety of flowering plants that have nectar, and a lot of, you can always count on that if you have native plants. Butterflies prefer white, pink, red, yellow, or purple, and they like to be able to perch on their flowers. That's why zinnia is fantastic for them. They can perch on that flower, and the center of that zinnia is a bunch of little flowers, and they can just sit there and nectar a while. Also daisies, cosmos, any of your flowers that they can land on and nectar from. And then hummingbirds, of course, they like these long tubular flowers. So that, and they just, I have seen those, and they sit there and you can watch them nectar. They like to be able to get way in there with their beaks. And then bees prefer purple, blue, orange, or yellow. And they don't like the long tubular flowers because they don't have long tongues. Although there are some quote unquote long-tongued bees, they're not like a hummingbird, okay. If you have the blue salvias, you'll notice that you have a ton of bees on your blue salvias because they like the color blue. Why do we want to attract pollinators? Well, first of all, we need to help them, okay? They need help, and we need to help them. That's the ecosystem reason. But our personal reason, if we want to be selfish about it, is it increases our yield. We've seen that with tomatoes. It's true for a lot of plants. If you don't have enough bees, you're not going to get the pollination you would get otherwise, or not just bees, insects. And then, I don't know about you, but seeing flowers in a garden and seeing the butterflies and the bees, it's just visually appealing. It makes your garden a nicer place to visit. I'm going to switch topics here. I'm going to now talk about companion plants and what is companion planting. This is a sunflower, or two sunflower plants at least, and these are cucumbers. And one of the suggested plantings is the tall sunflowers with cucumbers planted at the base. You don't have to build another structure. The sunflowers do that, and the cucumbers provide a living mulch for your sunflowers. And I don't know what all these others are, but there's obviously a ton of plants in there. What is companion planting? It's planting 2 or more plants together so that they both mutually benefit. And these benefits can be enhancing nutrients. When you plant things in the pea family, peas and beans and clovers, they bring nitrogen to your garden. They bring it up to where the plants can use it. They're called nitrogen fixers. Pollination, we've talked about that, the fact of how important pollination is to certain groups of vegetables, and crop yield. If you don't get pollination, you don't get crop yield. Okay, there is a ton of information on the internet, and it is not all correct. In fact, I ran across some of it that is not correct in my searches. When you go to look for things about plants or insects or planting, go to reputable sites. When I finally got smart, and I would put my query and put edu at the end. If you do that, that forces the search engine to go and look for educational resources, and you get much better answers. Now, you don't always get correct answers there either, but you're closer. We suggest you use universities, you use Native Plant Society, you use Xerxes Society, the Old Farmer's Almanac, people that are true, tried and trusted and true in the information that they're giving you. The other thing is, we are in Zone 9. You do not want to get information from Zone 3, because the information you get from Zone 3 will not work in Zone 9. So when you're looking for information about plants or planting, look for information from your zone, because otherwise it may not work, like they say. Myth or truth? This kind of goes back to what I was talking about. I don't know about you, and I'm not a vegetable garden, but I've heard for years that marigolds kill nematodes in the soil. So if you plant marigolds with your tomatoes, you won't have the bad nematodes. Well, that's kind of true. It's true if, when your tomatoes and your marigolds are through, you put those marigold plants, those spent marigold plants, in the ground, and you till them or shovel them under. Next spring, the nematodes will be dead, because when those marigolds are dissolving, disappearing, whatever you want to call them, they are releasing chemicals that kill those nematodes. Just planting marigolds in with your tomatoes is not going to kill the nematode. It does give some other benefits to your tomatoes, but it's not going to kill the nematodes. So, truth and fiction. And I have read in more than one site that if you plant them, it will kill it. Scientifically, they have proven that's not true. So, if you plant more than one kind of plant or a variety of plants, your whole garden benefits. You not only bring in the beneficial insects and the pollinators, but you bring in, you have healthier soil, because different root lengths help your soil be better. As those plants are dropping leaves and decomposing, it makes your soil better. Plants communicate with each other in the soil and on top, so they benefit each other. There's just all kinds of reasons why companion planting is much better for your garden. And to me, it's just more visually appealing, but that one doesn't really count for produce and all that kind of thing. Now we're going to talk about how companion planting, or how it works. We're going to talk about 3 different ways. Smells. There are herbs like rosemary, mint. There's another one, can't think of it. But there are a lot of really smelly, very highly scented herbs. Insects just don't like them. Insects don't like onions. Marigold has its own particular smell, and it does things in the soil that they don't like. So if you plant a bunch of plants, let's say we have a tomato, and we have basil, and we have marigolds, and we have nasturtiums. Then what happens when the insect that's looking for that tomato comes along, it's sniffing away, and it's got so many competing scents that it can't figure out where the tomato is. So it goes to somebody's garden where it's easy to find that tomato. So there are just the companion planting with plants that give off a scent that's offensive to a lot of insects really helps your garden. By attracting predators and parasitoids, I practice this, parasitoids. Let's call them parasitic. It turns out there are tons, and Nancy's going to show you a slide with a bunch of predator insects. Now, predator insects are great because they really do help get rid of the bad guys, but they sometimes get our good guys too, but that's just part of nature. It turns out I did not know much about the parasitic insects until I started researching this. It turns out that the majority of them are wasps or flies, and they're little bitty tiny things. So we don't even see them in our garden as a rule. We may see where they parasitized a caterpillar. Mostly it's caterpillars we see because they're big. But it turns out these things are highly, highly important to our gardens. And you get them to your garden by planting a variety of flowering plants. So it's very important that they're there, and it's very important that you bring them to your garden because they will save you a ton on insecticides and they won't kill anything else. So predators, that's a praying mantis with a wasp in his mouth. There are lots of predators, ladybugs. Their larvae eat aphids. They'll lay their eggs where there are a lot of aphids, and if you've got a magnifying glass, you can watch their larvae eat the little aphids. There's lots of benefits to having predator and parasitic insects in your garden. And visually distracting is a whole lot like smells. There are insects that find your plant by the color of the leaf or the color of the flower or the fruit. If you have a whole bunch of different colors of green, different textures of leaves, different heights, that insect flies over and he goes, "What the heck? I don't know what's in there." And he goes someplace where he can find it. So it's again, visually distracting that insect will keep it from your garden. We're actually going to go out to the garden after this, and because we were going to give this class, I talked to the gentleman who was heading that up and asked him to do some companion planting, which he did, and we're going to see some of that. We'll see vegetables among vegetables, we'll see flowers and herbs among vegetables, and then we'll see that along two sides of the garden, they've actually planted flowering plants to bring insects to the garden. So there are all different varieties of this, right? In some raised bed gardens, they'll have a bed that's just companion plants because it's hard to plant perennial plants in a bed that you're going to switch out every year. I mean, it just doesn't work, right? The perennial means it's going to stay there. So if you have a bed kind of in the middle and it has a perennial in it, then you can plant around it other things, maybe other companion plants or maybe some veggies. But there are all varieties of how to use companion planting, but these are just kind of the major ones. This is the oldest known companion planting done in North America. Our indigenous people did this centuries before Europeans came over here. And this is the absolute kind of pinnacle of companion planting. You plant the corn, and you plant him till he gets about 6 to 8 inches, okay, before you plant your beans. Then you plant your beans, and then you plant your squash. Well, the corn provides the structure for the beans to grow on. The beans bring nitrogen to the surface, which provides fertilizer and nitrogen for the corn, the beans, and the squash. The squash provide a living mulch around that, which keeps the temperature more level, and it keeps moisture in the soil. And if that squash is one of the ones that has the prickly leaves, it deters small mammals that like to eat your sweet corn from going across them, because they don't like to go across that prickly stuff. This is also a super combination food-wise, and I can't think of what corn has. Nancy? What does corn have? It's protein, carbohydrates. Corn has carbohydrates, beans have protein, and your squash have your vitamins and minerals. For the Indians, they could eat that when it was fresh, and they could dry all these to have them for when they're during the winter. So this was the perfect combination for them. Now, you may be looking at this thinking, I don't want one corn. So there are on the internet a lot of varieties of ways you can plant this and still do the same thing. In one of the articles I read, when you plant this way, you plant your corn 4 to 6 in a 18-inch circle. Then you plant your beans just around them in, again, 4 to 6 beans. And then literally 3 feet from your circle, you plant your squash plants, because they're going to grow. But you can make a row of corn and think about how to do essentially the same spacing, but get more produce. But again, this is just an age-old known way to companion plant. This is one of our Master Gardener's gardens. I was lucky enough to get to go visit her garden during our garden tour several weeks ago. She has zucchinis, tomatoes, she says the last of her romaine lettuce, pole beans, and lots of cosmos. Her yard, she has what I call a medium-sized backyard. Half of her yard is a veggie herb flower garden. And it was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, and she gets lots of produce off of her garden. If I were going to have a vegetable garden, I'd like to have one like that. So if you interplant, your different plants are going to bring different, not only pollinators, but your predators and your parasitic insects. The more variety you can get, the better. If you plant that cabbage plant and plant some things around him, plant another cabbage plant, it's going to be hard for that cabbage borer to find it. Plant for succession. Think about early spring, summer, and fall. You need plants that are blooming throughout the season in order to bring in insects to your garden. Again, I told you that for insects, they see differently. So if you can plant in clumps, then that will help them find your garden. Again, bees like blue, purple, yellow, and white. Butterflies, red, pink, yellow, and orange. And hummingbirds, they like red, orange, and yellow. I don't know why this one said red, but include nesting habitat. In the winter, if you don't plant a winter garden, leave your stalks, cut them off about 24 to 36 inches high, and leave them. Your cavity nesting bees will use those stalks to nest in over winter. Leave bare ground so that our ground nesting bees can nest in your garden. That's very important. Provide water. Now in our climate, and if you do watering, you may not actually need to provide water. You may have enough water on your leaves that they can get water, but you need a very shallow source of water with pebbles in it, because they can't drink out of a big pond. They need a shallow source with some pebbles or something in it so they can land and drink. And then above all, avoid harmful chemicals. I don't care if it's an organic pesticide or an inorganic pesticide, it kills bugs. Okay? So just because you say, well, I'm using in the garden, well, it doesn't make any difference. It's still going to kill. And it's going to kill the good ones and the bad ones. So whenever you can, use these other methods of companion planting plants that are going to repel the insects instead of grabbing insecticide. Oh, something I forgot to tell you. Let me make sure I'm not, no, okay. When you use trap plants, like a nasturtium is just like a honeybee to certain aphids and those kinds of things, when they get really infested, remove them from your garden, because they're a point in time, if you leave them, they'll become a source of infection themselves. So when you use trap crops and they get really infested, remove them from your garden. They shouldn't be there. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Nancy now.
Okay, one of my pet peeves is people gripe about insects in their garden, but they never go out and look at it. So one of the things that you need to do is pick a time for you in the morning, in the evening, use that for a break, whatever. Get a cup of water, like a measuring cup, put a few drops of soap in it, dishwashing soap, whatever, put on a glove if you're squeamish, and walk through your garden and just brush those pests off into that water. It makes you feel good. And it makes your plants do better. So that's one thing you can do. But the main thing is to scout and monitor. Go out and look before the problem gets ahead of you. Another thing I'd like to recommend to you is to read something. There are probably multiple sites online that give you the history of pesticide use in the USA. The history. It's scary. So you need to go back and read what happened a long time ago and how it affected people and how pesticides can still be affecting people and insects and other animals again. This is a tomato hornworm. If you plant tomatoes, you're going to have it. So if you see one that's got these little rice-looking things on it, leave it alone, because it has been parasitized by a little wasp, a braconid wasp, and they will emerge from that cocoon. So look how many there are. Look how many possible braconid wasps there are that can be released to go to your other tomato plants. So just leave all of that there and let them do their work. Do not, once you think that everything's gone, do not kill the caterpillar and do not squish that bunch of little rice things, because they're going to continue to come out. Those little things on the caterpillar are eating the insides of it. So that's one, but there are multiple things that have parasitoids on them, multiple plants. So keep an eye out for that and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Remember before you do it. Okay. Any questions about that? All right. Botanical practices protect natural enemies. These are some things that are natural enemies of pests. Our wheel bug up there at the top, that's the one that it will stink if you squish it. But it's also the one that buzzes and it scares you sometimes because it's in one place where you can't see it, but then it's in another place when it's in your face. So that one is a good one. The next, what? It's called a wheel bug. See the little wheel with gears on it up at the top? Yeah. Okay, the next one, having a little trouble seeing that one, but it looks like some kind of wasp. The wasps are all good. The next one is looks like a little caterpillar. Sorry, I'm not seeing that very well. It's not very clear. Okay. Over on the other side, that is a tiny little lady beetle. Down below that are some more lady beetles that are all good insects to keep. Okay, pointer. Okay, here we go. Wheel bug over here. That one I can't see that clearly. These three right here, even that little tiny one, is a kind of lady beetle. Beetle. It's not a bug, it's a beetle. Okay, the nymph looks like that. Be different colors and different species. So leave those. They're good too. Farther on down, we've got some wasps. I know you don't want them in your garden, but they are very good predators to keep. The one right here, this little wasp, it's a small wasp, makes that little pot, goes out in your garden, gets little tiny insects, brings them back, puts them in that little pot, and feeds them to its babies. If you break a pot open, don't do that. But if you break a pot open, there's lots and lots of little insects in there. Okay, beetles, those are all good. Nearly all of them are good. They have big mouth parts, and they run around at night a lot. If you open your back door, don't turn on the light, you'll see little things running. The tiger beetles, which have a lot of color to them, are the ones that'll really be there. Okay, this one, the one up here, right here, that's the larva of a lacewing. The lacewing lays her eggs on a stalk to protect them. So if you see that on a plant, you want to leave it. Then the nymph of the lacewing is there. And then that little thing that's a white puff, have you ever seen those little things crawling across your yard or a fence or something? That's one that's hiding itself. That's its camouflage. And then it's going to go eat something. They may not all be white. They could be other colors. But they're not really very big. But it's kind of fascinating to think that they went out and gathered all that stuff, put it on their bodies so that nothing would recognize it. And then we've got the praying mantid. If you look right there, that's a baby. It's tiny, little bitty thing. You can buy praying mantids and then release them at your house. You need to release them when it's cooler at night. Don't release them during the day. I'm not going to say how successful it is, but sometimes there are businesses that raise plants that will do that. At the butterfly celebration or not the butterfly, the celebration that they have in Missouri City on the Edible Earth Trail, they usually give away little cartons of those. And families with kids get home, and guess what they have in their car? They have a lot of little caterpillars. So get to know the insects in your garden. And some can be pests, but the majority of them will be friends. And these are just a few, believe me. There's lots. Okay, now, get this out so you can see it. This may not be very clear. Okay, botanists and all kinds of plant scientists have worked on this for a long time, but somebody started it, and that's what Mary was talking about with the Iroquois Indians. They started that process when they grew the beans and the squash and the corn together. So what we're going to do when we go out in the gardens or when you go back home to your garden, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this and know what works with what. So we're going to start at, we're going to start at the one that says beans. So you may want to look at your chart instead of the camera or the screen up there. So we're going to start with the one that says beans. If you look up there at the top, it says this is the friend list. So we're going to go down look at each one of those. If you're getting ready to plan your garden and you got this all written out, be sure if you want to plant peas that it's in that list. So peas are in that list. We also have tomatoes in that list. But up at the top again now, do you see the word faux? Okay, don't plant garlic with anything that's in this list. Don't plant onions, peppers, or sunflowers. So that's the way all of these things work across. As I was going down the bean list, I came to summer savory. I had no idea what that was. If you're curious, Google it, look it up. Turns out it's an herb that will grow here, but it's going to die when it gets hot, and then you will replant. It's pretty, but I don't know. Anybody heard of summer savory? Okay. All right. Any questions about that?
I have one.
Okay.
Why is it a faux? Why is garlic a faux to the ones on the left? You may have said it, but.
Repeat the question, so.
Oh, why is garlic a faux?
Yeah, you're saying like garlic, onions, peppers, sunflowers, don't plant them with beets, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, etc.
Okay. So, no, it doesn't. It says don't plant it with garlic, onions, peppers, or sunflowers. That's the ones. Okay. Well, we're just working in this first line. We're working in friends. If you get to cabbage, stop. We're working with foes. If you get farther down where the gray line is, stop.
So this is internet advice that I read, but one source was saying you don't want to plant tomatoes in the same place every year because they're more likely to have infestations. Do the master gardeners move their tomato plants around every year, or is that just?
I don't work in that garden, but do you? Do you move the tomato plants in a different place? Okay, so that's a good practice. Okay, all right. So that's the way every one of the things in this list work. You look at the top, you find out where the friends are, and then you look and find out where the foes are. Now, garlic and onions and peppers and sunflowers are good plants. Just don't plant them with those. Onions especially are used for a lot of things because they will keep pests away. There's a professor at A&M that has a real laid-back attitude toward gardening, Joe Masabny. If you ever read any of his stuff, one of the things that he discovered, not that he knew, was that if he planted a row of onions in front of, I can't remember exactly, it was some greens of some kind, that the rabbits in his area would not go in and eat those. So some of these things you just discover on your own.
Next to that, where you have corn, it's saying not to plant tomatoes near cucumbers.
Which one? Corn?
Where it says corn,
Okay,
so the friends cucumbers, the frozen tomatoes.
yes.
So you're saying not to plant cucumbers near tomatoes. Why?
Because of something that they have discovered that affects the tomatoes, and they don't tell us what it is. Is it going to get rot? Is it going to get some kind of disease or something? They don't tell us exactly why. What? What? Oh. Uh-huh.
And certain plants, the chemicals, oh, thank you. Certain plants, the chemical signals they send out, other plants just don't like. And what they've done when they came up with this list is both from observation and scientific tests, they've shown that these plants don't like each other. Now, we didn't do enough research to know exactly why they don't like each other, but there's something either probably at the root level, but it could be both root level and at the top, that they give off that the other plant, they don't do well together.
You can kind of understand with garlic and onions because We know those. We know that they have a smell that other plants may not work well with. So that's those. So we're only going to look at that one. Is everybody kind of getting the idea here? Okay, we're going to scoot over and we're going to find peppers. Do you see where peppers are? It's right up there under, there's a word tomatoes, onions. Okay, it tells us that with peppers we can plant basil, we can plant coriander. Who knows what coriander is? Another word. What? Cilantro? Is that what you said? Yeah, cilantro. Keep that in mind. You can also have onions. So now we've got cilantro and we've got onions and we've got peppers. And then we can plant spinach and we can plant tomatoes. What do we got? Salsa. There you go. Okay. It would be, to me, if I had a vegetable garden, I might look at this, but I'd probably forget what I read. So plan well and try not to do it. If you do it, and if you find out that you planted peas with broccoli and the broccoli died, please let us know. So you can be the scientist for us. I don't know if anybody has had experience with that. Anybody notice that a particular plant causes another plant not to grow? Nobody? Okay, so you're going to help us out. We're going to go out into the gardens now and look at some of the plants that Tom and his team have grown. I think you're going to be impressed. They're very, very healthy looking, and they do a good job. Okay. Okay, any more questions? Anything? Yes?
Okay, so the research from the internet regarding tomatoes and rotating crops.
Okay, wait a minute. Research on?
Visual people involved.
All right, thank you. So the information that was provided regarding rotating tomatoes, okay, because of whatever it, showed.
Whatever.
If it's container,
Is that me? Oh, sorry.
okay, I guess. It's
Okay, now, say it again.
Okay, does that apply to container? If planting tomatoes, should you reuse the soil or should you dispose of it and get new soil?
Can I do that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so you should always alternate your crops and watch our spring and fall vegetable slides, or, I don't know, there's numerous places out there, but you should always rotate and alternate. And so there's whole classes and courses on that.
Yeah.
So I would, whether ground, container, or whatever. Squash is one of the worst ones. Squash, you'll get the squash borers, and they'll get you every year.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
But if you're growing in containers, you should change the soil. That doesn't mean you have to throw that soil away necessarily. If you've got a low place in your yard or something, use that as a fill. Kind of watch it though. But you don't have to just totally dump a whole bag of soil somewhere. Uh-huh.
So what you were saying about the marigolds, like they have to be kind of tilled back into the soil to
Yes.
benefit. Are people using marigolds as a cover crop before they plant? How are they using the marigolds?
I think they use the marigolds mainly for the scent.
Oh, okay.
And then, like Mary said, the message that was out there was that they would kill the nematodes. But you've got to get it in the soil before it will kill nematodes. Yeah.
So I can address that briefly. In some commercial production, they might plant marigolds, or more commonly, elborn rye to kill nematodes. And we're too close to the speaker. The question was, how are people planting marigolds to kill nematodes? And it's not really done a whole lot in gardening, but in commercial production, they might plant a field of marigolds, or a lot of times like elborn rye, or mustards or something like that, and then they terminate it, till it into the soil, and then replant the next season, and that helps to control nematodes.
Yeah, you can look those kinds of things up online, because I'm sure a lot of people have questions like that. Just, I would Google tomatoes and elborn rye, or tomatoes and marigolds, and then see what comes up. Be sure you use a university site in your area. You don't want to go to Montana. You want to find out how it grows in Zone 9. So that would be, well, Texas A&M is a pretty good site. I like Texas A&M. I like their everything that I've ever read about gardening, but they are not very good about updating it. So you might want to check another source.
Nancy, we got a question back here too. Oh, yeah. You can mention about the QR code, and then we have a question back here.
Oh, okay. Take the picture of the QR code, tell us how we did. We're not quite done, but you can take a picture and we'll look at it.
I noticed there isn't a section for root vegetables, so just curious, what's the best way to grow root vegetables like ginger?
I'm sorry, you'll have to say that again.
The question was about root vegetables. There's nothing on the chart about root vegetables, correct? So
Let's
she was
see.
curious if there was a way to
Let's
manage
look.
those.
See, there are potatoes are there, carrots are there. There was nothing in the literature that I read about root vegetables, but we know that things can dig down and eat them. As far as diseases go, I don't know anything about that. So you could look up diseases of root vegetables in Zone 9. Put your specific root vegetable, carrot, beet, whatever. And you should be able to get some information on that.
And I had one more question. In the slide, it said to remove, or it was mentioned to remove trap crops from the garden. I didn't quite get that, the
Remove
complete
what kind
sentence.
of crops?
Remove trap crops from the garden?
Trap, okay, trapped crops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they've trapped the pest.
Okay, so once
So
it's done
you want to, when you get rid of the plant, you get rid of those pests, hopefully. Might not, there may be some eggs still there.
Thank you.
That's why they call them traps.
Oh. I don't think I was using it very well.
What's going to happen with your trap crop is it's going to become highly infected with like aphids or some other kind of insect. And when it becomes really highly infected, you need to pull that plant out of there and destroy it. Because if you leave it in there, it's just going to become a factory for your insects. So you use it to trap them, and then you remove it when it's highly infested. Because if you leave it, it can become a source for the insects.
What's an example of a trap crop?
A marigold. No, actually nasturtium. Nasturtiums aphids love nasturtiums. So if you plant your nasturtiums close to where you have an aphid problem, but by the way, you can't plant these plants after the insect's there. You plant your companion plants that are going to be trap plants with the plants. They need to be growing when the plant's growing, okay? You can't plant them after the insect's already there. They've got to be there before. But if you plant your nasturtiums, and some of the others that are trap crops, they're going to come to those, and they're going to become highly infected. And when they do, you need to pull them out, because otherwise they'll be a source of infection.
You're not going to use any pesticides, so you got to get rid of it. Okay, any other? I don't remember marigold's a trap plant.
It's really not a trap plant. Let me pour it
It,
back. It's a pollinator magnet for both, and it's the parasitoid wasps and flies and your predators, they all come to the marigold. But so it's not a trap crop in that it does not get your pests. Your pests don't come to it, but your good insects come to it and they eat your pests. A trap crop is more like the nasturtium that actually is eaten. There are some others, and I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't remember what they are.
those, the little insects that we talked about up here,
Yeah.
if you see the little insects that we talked about up here, in the larval stage or even in the adult stage, a lot of those will they will be on your plant and they will be eating those little bitty things. So that's another thing to watch out for, is you don't want to remove those because you want them to keep eating. You want those good little insects, and they're going to be small. A lot of them are going to be very small. So you want to keep those there. Uh-huh.
From that water. I'm sorry, was that being too quiet?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
But that's fine.
The question was how to keep mosquitoes out of standing water. Well, you change it often is one thing. There are some recommendations. What is that? There's mosquito dunks.
Which is
Well,
BT.
BT, there you go. That, you can buy that. You can buy the dunks or you can buy granules. If you buy the dunks, crush them up and put them in the water. But those work. They definitely work. Anything else?
We've
Got
got a
another
question
one?
over there.
Okay.
I don't know how does this work? Is this right?
If you just talk into it, it should.
Okay. Is
There
this
you
right?
go.
Okay.
There you
Talk
go.
a little louder. We're all friends here.
My question is a follow-up of her question that she just asked about setting up water for bees, but not attracting mosquitoes. If you use the mosquito dunks, would that harm the bees?
Good. Yes.
The mosquito dunks won't. It's BT, it's not gonna affect.
Okay.
It
But-
only affects the larvae of the
It'll
mosquito.
affect the larvae.
It does affect the larva, but I would still be careful.
Just dump it.
Dump it, or if you see dead ones, don't do it again. Okay.
The garden's best friend is the gardener's shadow.
She made that up. Okay.
The best friend of your garden is your shadow. And I did not make that up. That's a quote from somebody, but I don't remember who.
Your shadow, yes. Okay, your shadow,
Being in the garden. Be there.
yes. Be there, there you go.
Please fill out the